came, a new idea of religion came, which was the European idea. And people wanted this idea of true doctrine came in a very a profound way, not as a marginal voice among some ulemas or some some Brahmins, but as a widespread idea, sort of capturing the imagination of a lot of people. So different communities they started to see themselves as not only very well demarcated, but as mutual rivals, and each one having exclusive identity. In one case, it was easy to be both Hindu and Muslim. I don't know if you know that Aga Khan, जो पूजा ऑर्डर को हेड करते हैं, वो 9 अवतार 10 अवतार में बिलीव करते थे. 9 avatars were all the same as in the Hindu tradition, and the 10th avatar, guess what? The 10th avatar of Vishnu was Muhammad. In Haryana, the Mayors had a very similar kind of existence, where many of them were called Ram Muhammad because they read the Ramayana, but they also read the Quran. So this multiple allegiances, this shifting allegiances, multiple attachments, these fluid identities were not that uncommon. Among some elites, they were already categorical, but this became more and more a model later. In the 19th century, in the early 10th century, people began to acquire an exclusive and clear and categorical identity as Sikhs or as Hindus or as Muslims. I'm talking about not the few elites, but a larger number of people. And of course, as everybody knows, the British census helped in the formation of these categorical identities. So that is the time when this whole major communal issue began to erupt, and a new model had to be brought in for the first time explicitly. कि भाई communal harmony होना चाहिए. This is 1920s. Gandhi and others started to talk about communal harmony because there was intercommunal violence. There was a threat of religious persecution. There was a threat of religious expulsion. And both sides start to fear each other, and of course we know what the result is. They led to the partition of the country. But this was a major issue, and but India can. So there are two things which were very crucial. You cannot go like the French model. You cannot be anti-religious. You have to respect all religions. That was the first thing, which made it very different from the European model. And here, unlike Europe and America, where religious pluralism had been removed from the landscape, here there was religious diversity, but religious diversity was no longer something that you could take for granted. It was threatened because of communal violence and so on. So the idea that there was one community which might start to dominate another community, that prospect of inter-religious domination grew. And secularism's prime responsibility was not only to make sure that there is peace between communities, but to ensure that one community doesn't dominate another community. So secularism is not anti-religious, but is against inter-religious domination. That's very important. This is not European at all. This is distinctively Indian. But there is another issue, which is what is distinctive about Indian secularism. And that is intra-religious domination, which many of the religious communities, I would say all religious communities have neglected this aspect, and it is also responsible for why we are where we are today. What is intra-religious? And Ambedkar, Sarah knows this even better than I do, but Ambedkar was one of the first people to point out that this inter-religious warfare is having a profound impact on every religious community. Because in every religious community, people are trying to make a common front to fight an enemy. And they are trying to shrink their differences, which means that any possibility of dissent is being destroyed, any possibility of internal reform is being destroyed. Nobody wants to change anything, because the moment you start talking about hamari ye problem hai, hamari wo problem hai, when you start talking about problems within, it seems that you're exposing yourself, you're exposing your weaknesses. So you have to put a brave front. And the only way to put up a brave front is to suppress all the differences within, and to suppress all, not only the differences, but all the reform and internal reform within. So all religious communities, let's face it, all religious communities in India and abroad, all religious communities, and this was a common problem between Europe and India, they all had suppression of individual freedom, suppression of equality. And the two main victims of this were women and the so-called Dalits. Now we call them Dalits, but lower castes, पिछड़ी हुई जातियां तो क्या जो भी आप कह लीजिए